A quiet woman in worn-out jeans, a simple gray hoodie, and a calm expression that didn't match the sharp crack of gunfire echoing around her. Everyone else looked like they belonged there. Heavy gear, custom holsters, tactical gloves. She looked like she had taken a wrong turn on her way to a grocery store. And that's exactly why they dismissed her. The instructors barely glanced at her. The advanced shooters smirked openly. Even the receptionist who handed her protective gear whispered to her coworker, loud enough for her to hear, "She won't last 5 minutes." But she didn't react. She simply walked to lane 12, the one farthest from everyone else, and placed a rental pistol on the counter as gently as though it were a fragile antique. A group of confident shooters, led by a man named Brent, noticed her right away. Brent was the range's golden boy. Best accuracy, fastest reloads, the one everyone admired, and he clearly loved the attention. He nodded toward her with an arrogant grin. "That lane is cursed," he joked his friends. "Every newbie who uses it ends up quitting." His friends laughed. The woman didn't even lift her head. Brent stepped closer, raising his voice so everyone could hear. "Hey, you might want to move to the beginner section. This one's for actual shooters." Still no reaction. She simply adjusted her ear protection. Brent scoffed. "Suit yourself. Don't say I didn't warn you." Minutes passed. The rest of the class fired round after round, punctuating the air with noise and bravado. Brent boasted loudly about hitting 3 bullseyes in a row. His friends cheered every time he hit near center. Meanwhile, the quiet woman hadn't fired a single shot. She simply stood there motionless, staring at the target as if calculating something no one else could see. Annoyed, Brent walked over again. "You planning to shoot today or just admire the paper?" he asked mockingly. His friends laughed. This time, she finally looked at him, calm, steady, expression unreadable. "I shoot when I'm ready," she said softly. Brent rolled his eyes. "Right, like you know what you're doing." Finally, she picked up the pistol. The range grew quieter, not because anyone cared, but because they were waiting for her to embarrass herself. They expected an awkward stance, shaky hands, a shot that hit the ceiling or floor. Instead, she squared her feet, exhaled once, and everything about her changed. Her grip, her focus, her stillness. Even the air around her seemed to tighten. She lifted the pistol with flawless precision. One shot, just one. The sound cracked sharper than any other on the range, as if the room itself recognized it was different. Her bullet tore down the lane, straight through the exact center of the target. Dead center, not even a millimeter off. The entire room froze. Brent blinked hard. His friend stepped forward. Even the instructors lifted their goggles to look again. Her target had a perfect hole through the smallest ring, the kind only competitive champions usually hit, and never on their first shot. She lowered the gun, completely unfazed. Brent sputtered, trying to find words. "Tage, that's luck." The woman didn't respond. She simply loaded another bullet. One shot. Another perfect center. Now the instructors were walking toward her. Brent's smirk completely vanished. Everyone else stopped shooting, watching her with disbelief. And she hadn't even begun. Another shot. Another perfect center. By the third one, people weren't even pretending to train anymore. Every shooter, every instructor, even the manager behind the glass window was staring at her like she was rewriting the laws of physics right in front of them. Brent felt the heat rise in his face. His friends weren't laughing now. They were whispering among themselves, glancing at him as if waiting for him to explain what just happened. But he had no explanation. The quiet woman didn't celebrate. She didn't even smile. She simply moved her wrists slightly, evaluating her own control, then loaded a fresh magazine. An instructor stepped up, clearing his throat. "Ma'am, with respect, where did you train?" She didn't look away from her lane. "Nowhere special." That answer made everyone even more confused. Brent scoffed loudly, desperate to regain the attention he'd lost. Anyone can get lucky 3 times. Try hitting the moving target. The room tensed. Even the instructors looked uneasy. That target was reserved for advanced shooters only. But she simply nodded once. "Turn it on." A hush fell, The instructor hesitated, but the woman's calmness somehow compelled him to obey. He activated the advanced moving target, a darting, unpredictable mechanism that even Brent struggled with on his best days. The target shot out across the lane, zigzagging with speed that made most people flinch. The woman lifted her pistol again. No rush, no panic, just one steady exhale. Shot. The moving target jerked once, and then froze. A single bullet hole marked its exact center. People gasped. Someone dropped their protective headphones. Brent's jaw fell open so far it almost touched his chest. The instructor stared wide-eyed at the panel. "That's impossible," he whispered. For the first time, the woman lowered her gun fully and turned around. Not to brag, not to claim victory, but because she finally noticed how silent the room had become. Every eye was on her. But her gaze stopped on one person, Brent. He stood rigid, humiliated, his ego collapsing in front of the entire class. But instead of smirking or mocking him back, the woman simply said, "You shouldn't underestimate people. It says more about you than about them." Her voice wasn't angry. It was soft, firm, truthful. The room absorbed her words like a punch. Brent swallowed hard, unable to speak as she walked past him toward the exit. No dramatic flair, no arrogance, just the same calm presence she walked in with. But the story wasn't over, because as she reached the door, the head instructor rushed after her, nearly tripping over himself. "Ma'am, please wait." The shooters watched, breath held. He approached her with a respectful, trembling smile. "We have competitions here, regional, national, championships. If you're interested, we'd be honored to sponsor you." Whispers rippled through the room. Even Brent's heroes, shooters who had medals on their walls, looked at her like she belonged to an entirely different league. But she shook her head gently. "I'm not here for trophies," she said. "I'm just here because I like the quiet." And with that, she walked out the door. The class was silent for several seconds. Then everyone turned on Brent. But before they could speak, the door opened again. She stepped back in for one last moment. Everyone froze. She walked up to Brent, who looked ready to melt into the floor. Then she handed him her paper target, the one with every bullet hole in the exact center. "For you," she said softly, "to remind you that strength doesn't always shout." And then she disappeared out the door again. The entire room stayed silent for a full minute, because no one had ever witnessed a lesson delivered so cleanly, so calmly, and with a single shot that still echoed in their minds. Brent stared at the target sheet in his hands, unable to process what had just happened. The perfect bullet holes looked unreal, like someone had printed them with a machine, but he'd seen it with his own eyes. Everyone had. The quiet woman was gone, but the shock she left behind stayed heavy in the air. The head instructor let out a slow breath and clapped his hands once, trying to regain control of the room. "All right, class, carry on." But nobody moved. Brent's friends nudged him. "Bro, who was she?" Brent swallowed, still staring at the paper. I don't know." One instructor whispered to another, "She shot better than our top competitor. She shot better than our trainer." The other whispered back. Finally, Brent broke from his daze and silently walked to the back of the range. He sat down on a bench, staring at the ceiling, as if replaying every moment in slow motion. His friend Mark sat beside him. "You okay?" Brent rubbed his forehead. "I thought she was some nervous beginner, someone I could laugh at." Mark shrugged. "Guess you picked the wrong person today." Brent exhaled shakily. "No, I picked the wrong mindset." Before Mark could reply, the door swung open again. But this time, it wasn't the woman. It was a range manager, carrying a clipboard and looking nervous. Everyone stiffened. He walked straight to Brent. "You," he said firmly. "Come with me." The entire class murmured. Brent stood up slowly, unsure if he was about to be kicked out, scolded, or banned. The manager led him down the hallway toward his office. Pictures of champion shooters lined the walls, world record holders, experts, military veterans. When they reached the office, the manager closed the door behind them and sat down. "What's this about?" Brent asked quietly. The manager sighed. "That woman, The one you antagonized, do you know who she is? Brent shook his head. The manager pulled out his phone, tapped a few times, then turned the screen toward Brent. A photo. Brent leaned in. His eyes widened. No way, that's not. The manager nodded. Yes, that is her. Brent's heart dropped into his stomach. But why would she come here? He whispered. She comes once a year, the manager said. Never tells anyone. Never shows off. Just practices quietly. She hates attention. Brent stared at the photo again, stunned, embarrassed, speechless. Then the manager added, and she asked me to tell you something. Brent froze. What did she say? The manager leaned back in his chair. She said, tell him I wasn't trying to embarrass him. I was trying to teach him something I learned the hard way. Brent looked down at his hands. The message hit deeper than any humiliation could. Before he could respond, there was a knock at the door. The manager stood. Come in. A group of advanced shooters entered, the best in the facility. Some of the same people Brent respected and idolized. Their leader, a tall woman with sharp focus in her eyes, stepped forward. We want to talk to him, she said. Brent's stomach twisted. He had no idea whether they were here to scold and mentor him or something completely unexpected. Brent stood frozen as the elite shooting group entered the manager's office. These were the people he admired, national competitors, decorated marksmen, shooters whose skills he believed were unreachable. And now they were standing in front of him. The leader of the group crossed her arms, studying Brent for a long moment before speaking. We heard what happened, she said, and we heard how you treated her before you knew who she was. Brent bowed his head. I know, and I deserve whatever you're about to say. But the woman shook her head. You're young. You made a mistake. But what matters is whether you learn from it. Brent blinked, surprised. Another shooter stepped forward, a broad-shouldered man with calm eyes. She is one of the greatest long-range shooters alive, he said, but she wasn't born that way. She worked harder than anyone because she was underestimated all her life. The leader nodded. She told the manager to make sure you understood that. Brent swallowed. So what now? The leader lifted her chin. Now, you can keep feeling embarrassed, or you can do what she hoped you'd do, which is train, learn. Let this moment change you, not break you. Brent felt something loosen inside him, something that had been tangled with pride, ego, and insecurity for years. He nodded slowly. I want to learn, he said. For real this time. The leader smirked. Good, because she asked us to help you. Brent's eyes widened. She did. She sees potential in you, the man added, but only if you stop trying to impress people and start trying to improve yourself. The room felt lighter. Brent straightened his posture. Then I'll do whatever it takes. The leader clapped a hand on his shoulder. Then welcome. Your real training starts today. As they walked back toward the range, Brent glanced at the empty lane where the quiet woman had stood earlier. The memory of her perfect shot flashed vividly, not as humiliation this time, but as motivation. He whispered under his breath, Thank you, whoever you are. And though she was long gone, her message lingered in the air, a reminder that greatness doesn't always shout. Sometimes it speaks with a single perfect shot.